Hello and welcome. Welcome back. Welcome to whatever the hell is going on. Welcome. And today, I got something spicy. I got something spicy. We got the four, and imagine there's an audiobook on top of this. The 4-book monthly wrap up. That's crazy. I mean, I think I did 4 books last time, but another four. We're going to start chronologically with the one that I read first, and then the one that I read second, third, fourth. And the first book that I read, which was ding, 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 a 5-star. Can you believe it? I know everyone sitting at home is freaking out right now that I will give a 5-star. Because when do I normally do that? Actually, apparently I finished these on the same day, which is hard to believe, but that's what my Goodreads dating says. But I'll pick this one first because I've already started talking about it. Ding, ding, ding. Red Seas Under Red Skies, bitch. The Gentleman Bastard series. I'm going to say, honestly, this series fucking eats. It's really good. I mean, I'm going to have to read the third book to decide whether it's my favorite series or not, because I have Stormlight Archives at the moment taking that space. But I definitely I'm gonna say that this is a contender. This series is a contender for that top spot. But I've heard some mixed things about the third book in the series, so I think if the mixed things are what they are, it might not end up being my favorite series. But Lies of Locke Lamora is definitely my favorite fantasy, or my favorite book, period. And I will continue but to believe that this book is not as good as Lies of Locke Lamora. This book sees our cast of characters carried on from book 1, traveling into a new city with new problems, and as you can see by the cover and the title and everything in it, piracy is now something that they have to navigate and they have to figure out. And it's really exciting to watch them try and figure that out, honestly. It's really interesting because these characters aren't pirates, but they're put in a situation where they have to become pirates. So I think that's really, really interesting. I'm not going to spoil anything for any of these books, by the way, disclaimer. So if you're really excited about reading one of these, I'm not going to spoil it, so don't worry. But yeah, this book is really cool. I love how it expanded on the world. I loved what it did with our main cast of characters. I like the characters that it introduced. I think it was really cool. I just think the central plot line of Lies of Locke Lamora is more interesting to me and more compelling and more gripping and more grabbing and more undulating than this one. Even though I like this book a lot, I think just this book is kind of split into separate little plot lines. I don't really want to give away too much about what's going on, but book 1 definitely is as well. But I love the way that book 1 just felt all encompassing, whereas this has a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of moving parts here, which I still loved it. Still gave it a 5-star. I still really recommend it. I think it's a good ass book. And I'm really excited to read the third one. I'm not sure what I'm really going to think. Third one is very divisive among fans of the series, and I think it's kind of the reason why Scott Lynch, it's taken him 7 years and he's still not released the fourth one, is because I think, I haven't read it, but I think he misstepped in book 3. Fans didn't like it, and now he's trying to kind of retcon or turn his story away from what he was planning on doing with book 3. So we'll definitely see how that ends up. Either way, I'm really excited to read it. So that will be happening sometime before the end of the year, I hope. But I'm in no particular rush to read it because I enjoy where this book left off. I know that book is a little bit divisive, so I'm just kind of taking my time with it, and then when I get there, I get there, because there's nothing else left in the series. So whenever I finish reading that, I'm done with General Bastards. So I'm a little hesitant to dive right into it just because that will mean the end of the series, and I really love the series, so I don't want to immediately go until the very end of it. and then be left waiting for the next one to come out, kind of thing. Because I didn't have that with Stormlight, because I knew Homeboy was gonna fucking write a new one soon. So that's where we're leaving off there. So Red Seas Under Red Skies, Scott Lynch, 5 stars. Really good. Yeah. Now, second book that I read is unfortunately a 2.5 stars. So half what I just gave Red Seas Under Red Skies, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And I really wanted to enjoy this. I really, really wanted to enjoy this book. It is an audiobook. It is not an audiobook, but I listened to it on audiobook, so I guess it is an audiobook, and it is a physical book. It's every book. And I just got I was so bored. I was so fucking bored, man. I hated it. Yeah, no, not hated it, but I hated the boring parts about this book. I really think you could take off 90% of the chapters and you would have the exact same story, and it would bear the same amount of weight as it did. And I saw someone comparing this book. I think it might have been Cindy, or no, comparing a different V.E. Schwab book to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and they were like, you can tell this was like her baby, like her literary child. Like she just put her everything into it, and you can really tell. In my opinion, in terms of the prose that I like, I feel like it was a little overwritten. I'm just going to check what my Goodreads review said. Yeah, I said it was overall long and tedious and filled with meaningless fluff, similes, and metaphors. And I really do agree. This very similar to the next book we're going to be talking about. I was leaning more towards a 2-star. But the thing for me, and the thing that I kind of have trouble grappling with, is the difference between like, where do I draw the line on a 1, 2, or 3-star book? Because if I don't enjoy a book, I generally I'm looking at the 3-star rating. Because still, I overall think it's a good enough book. I had fun with it at a lot of points in time. So I think if I didn't really enjoy it, but there was nice parts of the book, that's a 3-star. And then if I didn't really enjoy it all that much, it's a 2-star. But then what is even a 1-star? A book that I hated to the end of the earth? I don't really know. I don't think I've given a 1-star out, period, to a book. But this, I was leaning more towards 2-star in terms of my enjoyment with this book. But I think the overall quality of the book is sitting more at like a 3. So I was kind of conflicted, because I was like, I don't think this book deserves a 2-star. But if I was to rate my enjoyment of the book, I would say it was about a 2 out of 5 enjoyment. I ended up just laughing towards the end of this book. I felt like I was going crazy. It was like a Joker moment, but I had pretty much given myself this behemoth task of reading it. So I just felt like I had to go for it. I felt like the book had a lot of potential. The love stuff, if you've read the book, you know what the fuck I'm talking about. I hated it so much. I thought it was so stupid. I think it was so silly. I think it was so dumb. I still don't quite understand it. I guess it's more like it reads a bit like a Wattpad fucking fanfic or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. The amount of shit you have to read about Paris in 1600s or 1700s, I guess, is just like mind-numbing, man. It's so mind-numbing. It's so repetitive. All these chapters are just doing the same thing, and because everyone forgets her, that's the whole story. It's boring because there aren't really any side characters. So that's what I think about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I didn't really enjoy it all that much, but still, I don't think it deserves a 2-star. But if I'm going to be completely transparent, my enjoyment of it was 2-star, but I think it deserves about a 3. So I'm giving it a 2.5. And then we follow on to our next book. Actually, a physical one again. Shadow of the Gods. Another 3-star, unfortunately. Another 3-star from me. And again, my enjoyment of this one was probably more like 2.5. I'm trying to make my hair do something. It's at this really awkward length. My enjoyment of this was probably more like 2.5. But I overall think it deserves probably like a 3. So very similar to Addie LaRue, but I enjoyed it slightly more. Not much more, I'll be honest, but slightly. And I think overall, I just didn't really care about anything. I didn't care about any of the characters. God, did I not care about any of the fucking characters. Orca was the most interesting, especially early on in the book. But at about the 1/3 of the way in, or halfway through the book, I genuinely lost interest in her as well. I just didn't care what happened to fucking anyone, really. There were so many side characters that I didn't even know whether I should care about any of them. And I was like, well, I can't keep remembering 40 bloody Bloodsworn members' names. I'm not bloody remembering, every name of the clans of these multiple groups of people. There's 3 separate storylines, and they barely interact. And I was just really thrown off by that whole thing. There's just so much to remember, and none of it's all that interesting. It's a bunch of motherfuckers hitting each other with axes and fucking big swords and axes and shit. If you care about that, sure. Elva, don't give a fuck about. Varg, don't really care about. Orca, kind of cared about early, and then didn't care about. That's the main downfall of this book for me, is that I just didn't care about the characters. Another thing is the power balancing between the tainted. Tainted are the magical people, or the beast people in this world. And I feel like I just tend to have no idea, really. Maybe this is a comprehension issue, but I feel like John Gwynne just kind of was doing whatever the fuck he wanted. When it's a tainted is concerned. Because in one scene, a particular tainted character is able to just destroy, just kills so many people, just killing tens of people, just mowing them down, going crazy. And then in another scene, a completely different scene, a group of tainted come up against a group of humans, and they're kind of evenly numbered. I think the humans are even outnumbered at this point in time, and they go up against the tainted on the battlefield, and they're holding their own. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this doesn't make any damn sense. Why the hell is one tainted character, admittedly they're from different forms, but should we even get into that? Because I'm pretty sure the form that was on the battlefield was supposed to be the stronger, rarer, cooler form. But whatever, there's probably a plot reason behind it. But I didn't gel with that. Maybe it wasn't explained. Maybe I misread it. Maybe it's an inconsistency. I don't know. I didn't really enjoy it. The plot twists. Girl, can you even call them plot twists? Because they weren't really very good. A lot of the betrayals or characters that you were misled to believe that they were good people, and then they switched sides or something. It never really felt like it meant anything, because those side characters weren't really built up as characters. We never really got to see those side characters, or care about them, or really care about any connection that they have to our original cast. So when they go ahead and betray, it's like, oh, I don't care. I don't care that this person is betraying them. And there's a big reveal with 2 of our main characters, which I'm going to be completely honest. I didn't even realize this was something that we were going to reveal until it got revealed. And then I was like, wait, what? Were we not supposed to know this? Because it was so blatantly obvious. And then the same thing with the other character, but a little less obvious, because it was kind of trickled through the story more so than it was just obvious from page one. So those two plot twists with main POVs, girl, they weren't it. Yeah, this was just a bunch of action scenes. Turns out I don't really care about action scenes all that much. And yeah, and the plot was pretty much just 3 separate storylines. And not to spoil anything, but 3 separate fucking storylines. That's all I'll say. They interact, whatever. They cross over at times, or I don't know. That was super negative. I just don't care about it. I just don't care about it. 2-star. Fuck you. 2-star. I don't know. That's what I was saying. Is the difference between a 2 and a 3-star is really hard for me. 2-star. I don't know. I don't think it deserves a 2-star. I think the book's fine, but it just doesn't gel with me. I feel like it's made for a completely different basket of readers that just want to watch like cool Vikings fighting, and I'm like, girl, where is anything? Where's the interest? What's the reason for me being here? So I wasn't incredibly hot on that, but everyone else says it's good, so I'm a fucking fart in the wind when I'm saying negative things about that. Enjoyment, 2 out of 5. Didn't really enjoy it. I was super bored. Much like Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, enjoyment was a 2 out of 5, but I don't think the book really deserves that, because I can see why everyone else likes it. I don't think the book is poorly written. I just didn't personally enjoy it. And then for the book that I finished like an hour ago, the big juicer herself, Warbreaker. And now this is kind of it's kind of awkward because this is a 5-star. This is fucking good. This shit is good. This wrap up feels really weird because there was 2 books where I would consider them kind of like a 2.5, 2 out of 5. And then 2 books that I'm like, yeah, that's a 5 out of 5, maybe 4.5, 5. But whatever, 5. It's rounded up, bitch. What can I say? This book is way better than I thought it would be. I just got done with it literally like an hour ago, sitting there on my couch reading this. Just had to really get to the end of it because I was like, I am too hooked. And I seriously think that Vivenna from this book, from the somewhere on the back, is my favorite Cosmere character. Now, don't look at me like that. I'm not sure because her story has so much more going on with it. I don't want to spoil too much, but there's more to her story than what's contained in this novel. So to call her my favorite, I feel like that is maybe a long shot. And also, I need to understand there's some recency bias to it. There's some recency bias to it, me saying that she's my favorite Cosmere character. Because again, I don't have her full story, and I just finished reading it. So obviously I'm going to think she's like my favorite or whatever. But Vivenna is sickening. She slays. She eats. She's boots. Mama. It's everything. Yeah. Siri is another character in here. Great character. Really, really loved it. Those are the 2 sisters that kind of headline this book. And the book starts off with Ciri and Vivenna basically having to go to Halandren. That's all I'll say. They're not originally from there, so they're from a state or a country or whatever you want to call it that lives a little bit further away, and Halandren is kind of like the capital, and they have to both come to the capital for different reasons or things like that. So that's really cool. You start off this book with Vasha, with the prologue. You get to see him, get to see Nightblood. It's really fun. Nightblood's throughout this whole novel. Maybe not as much Nightblood as maybe I expected, but there is still a lot of Nightblood. And I think, the Sword Nimi stands out there will appreciate the amount of Nightblood in here. It's pretty cool. But definitely Vasha he's a main POV. He's one of the 4 main POVs, but he definitely has the least amount of page time, I would say. So maybe don't go into this expecting it to be like the Sword Nimi book, because I think Nightblood, which is going to be the sequel to this book, and I think it's going to be more of a sequel in an abstract sense than a continuation of the story here, because I think what Nightblood, the sequel to this book, is going to do is going to tie this book in with some archives. And that's all I'll say. And I think that's what that book is going to do. So I think it's still a sequel of this novel, but I think it's going to be more about the connection between Nathalis and Roshar than it is just about Nathalis, where this is set. And then we have Light Song. My only complaint, this goddamn book is freaking Night Song. I want to see my review because I popped off on Light Song because I think he deserved it, honestly. I think he absolutely deserved it. So I want to say my only real complaint is that the humor and witty wordplay that's frequently on display here. I've seen Sanderson's, I'm just going to go off the dome now, but Brandon Sanderson always has to write these witty, quirky, snappy characters that he's just obsessed with writing them. In Mistborn, it wasn't really that apparent, and I think it was kind of spread between multiple characters in Mistborn. So you have Sazed being kind of quippy at times. You have Breeze being quippy at times. You've got Ham being quippy at times. Like, it's very spread out. So when a character does appear on the page and they've got, they've got their jokes and their jests and whatnot, they're not really as abrasive. They're not as annoying and frustrating. But Light Song just was annoying me. This is an archetype that he loves to use. It's very similar to Shallan. I understand Shallan uses her humor as a trauma reaction or a trauma defense or whatever, but I just I don't know. I don't like reading it. I don't think it's very funny. It just annoys me. There's a line in here about how someone tries to prove God's existence with their cleavage, and that's Light Song's whole thing. And it's like, Brandon Sanderson doesn't even, he's always so strange when he talks about these things, like sex or like women's bodies and things like that. It's just really odd. I don't love the way that Light Song existed in this world. Like, at one point, a side character next to him is wearing something that covers up a lot of her body, and he's like, oh, well, she looks so much better now that she's covered up more skin. Like, I'm not sure why, but I believe she's a lot more attractive when she's wearing more clothing. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, I don't know, it's like almost seen as like a bad thing that this character is flirtatious and bodacious and wears slutty clothing. And a lot of characters do it. Vivenna does it as well. Vivenna has this thing where she's like, I don't want to show Siri as well. She has this thing where she's like, I don't want to show cleavage. Like I'm trying to chill, and it's a lot better in those characters. It's a lot better written. But when Light Song's talking about women's bodies, I'm just sitting there like, come on, bro. Like I don't want to read about this. You could have left this out. You could have left this out. And there's a bad bitch sitting in front of him, and he never sleeps with her. I'm like, come on, man. This weird like celibacy thing that's going on. I'm like, Brandon Sanderson, like you don't understand. My boy Lightsong would be hitting. That my boy would be hitting, and he would not be quipping. He would not be making funny jokes. My boy Lightsong would be getting pussy. Anyway. There's some reveals and stuff towards the end, throughout the whole book. There's one reveal that it's not really a reveal, but it's more like a plot point that I saw coming from fucking 15 miles away. The very first few chapters of Light Song's story, I was like, I know what's happening. Bang, I know what's happening. And then it happened. Not exactly as I predicted, but it did happen. The world is super cool. It's like a jungle setting. The magic is really cool. It's called Awakening. It's where you can invest breath into an object, and it can like run around or whatever you want it to do. It can do jumping jacks. And I think knowing about the magic system here is really cool because it expands your knowledge on the Cosmere. You understand different things that have happened or things that could potentially happen. And yeah, there's a lot of tie-in with Stormlight Archives here. And my ending note, I want to say this is really good. Up there with the best Brandon Sanderson novels. Really enjoyed it. Really cool characters. I just think Light Song is the one thing that I'm like, well, I don't really enjoy that character that much. So that's what's holding me back. It's a bit like Words of Radiance, how Shallan was really annoying me during Words of Radiance. So I'm kind of hesitant to say it's my favorite because it's the exact same character archetype being pushed on me and I'm resisting it again. So I think, this is something that me and Sanderson don't exactly agree on, is this kind of character working out. But it's his, it's Sanderson's way of being, like his way of viewing the world is through characters like this. And sometimes it really works. Take Lift, for instance. I think Lift is a really great comedic relief, interesting character in Stormlight Archives. But then characters like Shallan, and Sword Nimmi as well is a really great comedy relief kind of dark humor character. But then I think, Light Song and Shallan, the humor isn't really hitting. I'm not really enjoying the whippy, quirky wordplay. Because I feel like it's an expression of himself when he does this. When he adds puns into everything, he tries to, it's almost like I feel the author trying to prove himself that he's funny and smart, and I'm just sitting there like, shut up, I don't want to hear this. So I feel like I can see him looking at me through the pages of the book, and I want to slap his ass and push him back. Get away. Yeah. But I want to say, last thing, this isn't related to my wrap-up, so wrap-up over 5 out of 5, really good, but more like a 4.5 out of 5, but on good reason I'm going to give it a 5, so I'm going to say it's 5. But I want to say, I think people should read the Cosmere in order. Because the weight of the Warbreaker reveals on Roshar meant nothing to me. Meant fucking nothing to me. And they've meant nothing to every one of my friends that have read Stormlight Archives and has encountered characters from this book, because it just doesn't mean anything, and it should at this point in time. If you're encountering this huge character, they're written in there to be a surprise, and you can kind of figure it out for yourself. But to have to retroactively do that, it's not really the same, because I have to finish reading this book and then I have to go on the Coppermind Wikipedia for Stormlight Archives and then type and do some research about how these characters present into Stormlight Archives, because it's been a while since I've read it and I don't exactly remember, and just the satisfaction isn't really there. So while I've heard a ton of people say, like, no, don't read Warbreaker and stuff before the Stormlight Archives, I actually really disagree. Not that I think it's necessary, but from my opinion, why not? Why wouldn't you just go and read Warbreaker and then go back? Because especially books 3 and 4, I mean, you could get away with book 2 without having to read Warbreaker because it doesn't really matter, but books 3 and 4 without having read Warbreaker, I just think you're getting a little bit less of an experience. And I'm thinking, why not give people the best experience they got? Mistborn before Rhythm of War as well. Without spoiling anything, Mistborn before Rhythm of War as well. Just because I think his books are compounding against one another. They're building up, and I think if you read them the opposite way, like I've been doing, it's just not really as satisfying. A lot of the reveals that happen in Stormlight, I find out retroactively because people are talking about it, or I see it on the wiki or something like that, and then I'm like, oh, like I was supposed to know that this character was in Stormlight Archives, but when it was revealed, it was revealed quite subtly, so that I wouldn't pick up on it. But then once I've read Mistborn and then I come back, or read Warbreaker and then I come back and then I find out about it, it's not exactly the same as if you're flipping through the pages and then you read a quote and it's like, holy shit, that's fucking that guy. Like, I don't get that. You don't get that if you read them out of order. And I think it's a damn shame, because that is one of the most exciting things about the Cosmere and about Brandon Sanderson's writing, is the interconnectivity of certain characters and things. So, God, without waffling on for too much fucking longer, I think you should read them in chronological order. No, you can read a series and then switch to another series, like The Lost Metal. Or not The Lost Metal, the Mistborn Era 2. Like, you don't have to go Mistborn Era 1, Mistborn Era 2, or whatever. Like, you can just kind of do them as you like, but move in a publication date kind of way. Don't go backward. Don't start with Stormlight Archives, is what I think. That's just what I think. Let me know in the comment section down below whether you believe I'm correct or not. I mean, nobody that watches this kind of has the same understanding of the Cosmere that I do, so they aren't qualified to say. But I just believe it. I'm kind of like, well, why are you taking away these reveals from these people and they have to learn about it retroactively? Because that's happened to me, and I feel hurt. Man, I feel hurt. But I really enjoyed reading Warbreaker. I'm going to read Mistborn Era 2, I think, next. And then Elantris is going to be my when I can be bothered. If I need a Cosmere book, I can go to Elantris. I think that's how I'm going to run it, because I'm not particularly excited to read Elantris. I mean, most people consider it to be his first published book, so most people consider it to kind of be a little rough around the edges, but who knows? Who knows? Got October coming up. Spooky reads. I got some spooky reads in my mind, some possible spooky reads. But again, I don't really have much horror, thriller, and mystery and that kind of thing. I've got one or two books I would consider Halloween-y, so maybe I'll go them. Anyway, bye. See you later. Bye.